Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles Long, and with me, as always, is my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, navigator, gunner, orator, Jacob Anthony Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am swell. How are you, Charles?
I'm pretty good. I'm ready to pitch a brand new televisual series that has never been said before. Totally unique idea, blows everything we've ever done out of the water. It's with just the sheer amount of creativity on display here.
Really?
Yeah.
This is a completely new idea, not a season 2 or spin-off.
Nothing. Not even. It's not a season 2. It's not a spin-off. It's not even touching anything we've ever done before. Totally unique.
Okay.
Totally out of the blue. So, it is a dark noir thriller about a journalist in the 1960s who's investigating a murder.
Okay, 1960s. That's a little different than what we've done.
Yeah, 60s, avant-garde. Artist has been murdered,
Okay,
and this guy has to figure it out.
Nixon's in office or something.
Nixon's in office. LSD is big. The
Bob Dylan's
Dylan's
early,
running around.
Kind of like heydays.
Yeah.
Early heydays.
Some would say the best Dylan. Some would say a good start for Dylan. Andy Warhol is alive and well. He's there. And he's being a...
Is it set in the U.S.?
It is set in the U.S. It's actually set in a little place you might know called Los Angeles, California.
Oh,
yeah.
Not like every show and movie set there.
Nope. Not, like I said, totally original, totally away from anything we've ever done. Kennedy Jackson is a hard-drinking, hard-smoking, hard-fighting lowlife. A scumbag through and through with only one redeeming quality, his dedication to the truth. And he is an investigative journalist working for the Chronicle, a failing newspaper that only employs him because his father was the founder. So this guy, Mr. Jackson, Kennedy, is a real scumbag, unlike any of my, previous protagonists. He's a real piece of shit.
Yeah. That's very different for you. You usually don't go that angle.
Yeah, usually I do very saintly characters as the protagonist, but no, not this time. This guy's a real lowlife. He lives in his car. He's down on his luck, and he's kind of, out of it most of the time. Like, have you seen Inherent Vice? Inherent Vice is it's a okay movie, but Joaquin Phoenix is in it, and he's something, and he's like a weird, crazy, drug-addled lunatic, and that's kind of the vibe I'm going for with this guy. He's kind of like out there and a bit of a freak, but he's just crazy enough to get to the bottom of this crazy mystery he's gonna find himself involved in. So the episode starts. First episode. We do the intro. Obviously, I don't have a title yet. We'll come up with a title, as we always do. And he's like, the intro ends, and we just have a nice wide shot on this low-life, dive bar. We hold it for a second, and then Mr. Jackson, Kennedy's thrown out of the bar into the mud, into the dirt and the grime. It's not muddy because it's L.A. It doesn't rain in L.A., believe it or not.
Never rains in Southern California.
Nope.
Except when it does.
Yeah, and...
Like last week.
But this is set in the 60s. This isn't set last week.
Okay, good to know.
Oh, well, you know what? We could set it last week. Nah, we can't. Sorry. It's too much period-specific stuff going on in this show for it to be set last week.
Mm-hmm. You're like the unknown Kennedy, the fourth Kennedy brother.
Yeah, exactly. The one who has Kennedy as his first name. Mm-hmm. So he's just been thrown out of a bar. He's, all fucked up. He's drunk. He's sad, and he's wandering home, drunk. And by home, I mean to his car, because he does not have a home, because, again, he's a terrible person who makes bad investments with his time and money. And so
he has enough money to not live in his car. Or, like, he should have enough money.
Well, he works for a newspaper, and his father started the newspaper, and it was a well-respected...
So he should have a bunch of money.
Yeah.
He squandered it.
He squandered it with gambling and booze and loose women, that sort of thing. And speaking of loose women, while he's walking home, he gets mugged by two prostitutes who beat the shit out of him. because they're like, well, you know, they come on to him, and he's like, nah, they get away, you know, and you know, while that's happening, they're like, oh well, fuck you, and they kick the shit out of him, like really hurt him, you know. And so he's really low down. This is the kind of the point of this opening sequence, is to just really put it to this guy, like really make him, you know, show how low he is. And I think maybe one of the prostitutes should give him some sort of a facial, you know, injury, right? So he can be a bit like Jack Nicholson in Chinatown, right? Where he's got the big thing on his nose. Like, he's got this facial injury that he's just gonna have throughout the entire show, and it'll just get, like, worse and worse because he's not taking care of himself, he's not cleaning it. So it's just, like, getting infected and more, like, gross and gnarly, but he doesn't care. Throughout the whole show.
Okay.
Yeah. The real...
Yeah. So maybe she had a ring on, and she punched him in the face, and it cut, like, his...
Yeah.
cheek.
Like he's
got a scar on his cheek
above his eye, you know, or maybe he gets a black eye, and like he's got
a Harry Potter scar.
Yeah.
Across his eye.
Over the first like few episodes, it kind of like it swells up, and then maybe in episode 3 his eye is swollen shut, and he has to like cut it to, you know, because you know how people have to do that. They have to cut the wound to, you know, let all the fluid out so he can see again. You know, real gross stuff. And so he's he's really not, he's doing bad, right? And he's like on the street, he's bleeding, and he's like, ah, fuck, okay, what are we doing? And he stumbled upon, a police officer stumbles upon him. And you think, oh, there's a police officer, he's gonna help him. And then Kennedy Jackson, he's picked up by his shirt collar and put on his feet by the police officer, who then proceeds to knock him out. Just send him right into a big pile of garbage, because this police officer lended Mr. Jackson some money, and Mr. Jackson has not paid him back in quite a while. So this guy's...
so we lent him money, he's just, you know...
He's
coming to collect, you know,
yeah,
breaking his legs.
Louching on the debts, yeah. So he, you know, knocks him out. He's like, I'll give you another, you know, 24 hours to get my fucking money, or I'm gonna make sure that, like, you're in jail. Like, What's
the cop's name?
I don't...
Is it some hard-nosed, like, Lieutenant Hard-Nosed?
Yeah, Lieutenant Hard-Nosed Dickface. That's what Kennedy will call him when he's drunk. But maybe we can have him have, like, his first name's Richard.
Hardy Richard.
It's
gotta be something that fits it. So it's Hardy Richard.
Hardy Richard, I like
That's
that.
his name.
Hardy Richard.
Or Richard Hardy. Hardy Richard sounds better though, even though Richard Hardy makes more sense.
Yeah, maybe Hardy Richard is what everyone calls him, and his name is like Richard Hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so at this...
because on the first day of the job, he thought it was like, you know, last name, comma, first name, but he wrote it the other way.
Exactly.
That should be the reason, but...
Because he's an idiot. Because only an idiot would lend this guy money. And so, our gentleman, Mr. Jackson, has been knocked out, is bleeding, he's wounded, he's drunk, and he just falls asleep on this big pile of garbage that he was knocked out into. And when he comes to the next day, he's delirious, he's hungover, his head hurts like a motherfucker because he's been beaten and mugged, and he finds that there is a dead body next to him, the corpse of Harry Standen, a famous...
Harry Styles?
Yeah, Harry Styles.
Holy crap.
Harry Styles is there, and he's dead. And actually, Harry Styles would be a good person to play this role.
Yeah, the dead guy.
Yeah, because
it really brings out the best of his acting chops.
It really does. You're right. And throughout the show, we learn more about this character and just how much of a weird creep he is. And so I think that would also work well for Harry Styles. But
it really fits his image, you know.
Harry Standen is dead, and you know, being the curious man that Jackson is with his hungover brain, he's like, well, let's go through his pockets. Maybe he'll have something useful.
And he's got some money.
Yeah, exactly. And so he goes through his pockets, and he finds the only thing he's got on his person is a business card for a concrete firm downtown. What's a concrete firm?
He's in the construction business.
Exactly. Well, this guy's a very famous avant-garde artist. He's a, what do you call it?
Oh, I thought it was a mafia thing.
No, he's an Andy Warhol's type, like, weirdo artist that you get in the 60s, you know? And he's known worldwide for having very interesting paintings that some people have very strong opinions towards and other people have no opinion toward whatsoever. Like, there's no middle ground with this guy. You either like his work.
Giant white canvas with one tiny black dot. People are like, is there a black dot or not? And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And so, you know, obviously Kennedy Jackson doesn't know this. He's just like, there's a dead guy. Let's go through his pockets. Why not? And so he goes through his pockets, finds this concrete firm, and then he hears sirens. And so he's like, fuck, I gotta duck out. And so he, you know, it's like maybe 5 in the morning when he discovers this dead body and wakes up. And so he's like sprinting, you know, away from the cops. And he, you know, sees that he's close to a residential neighborhood, right, that he knows is inhabited by his brother. Let's give him a good last name. Think of a good first name. A good, solid first name.
So the last name is Jackson.
Last name's Jackson.
Bo.
Andrew.
It's Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson. His brother, Bo Jackson, is there.
No. Bull Jackson.
Bull Jackson.
B-O-L-E.
Okay, Bull Jackson, his brother, is in this, he's in this nice, suburban neighborhood, pretty much, and he's, like, got his kids and his wife and stuff. This guy's very obviously the, you know, the not a disappointment, whereas Kennedy is 100% a disappointment to everyone in his family. And, you know, Bull, obviously, he loves his brother,
Same.
but he can admit that he fucking sucks, right? And so... 5 a.m. Kennedy's banging on his door. Bull answers it, and he's like, what do you want? Is everything okay? He's like, dude, I just need an alibi. Like, I was here last night, okay? I was here all night last night, okay? And he makes his brother agree to the alibi without telling him anything. And then just as soon as he shows up, he leaves again. Because he's got to, you know, clock into work, right?
Yeah.
He's got to go turn in his article for the Chronicle. I was trying to think of the most generic.
Does his brother also work there? Maybe his brother's the editor or something.
Maybe his brother works there. I didn't really think that his brother would work there. I think his brother would like have taken the money.
The dad's the founder, right?
Yeah.
Like
the dad founded the business, and so the dad gave them the choice of, hey, do you want a chunk of money to get your life started, or do you want to work for me and with me at this, at the newspaper? And so Kennedy said, I'll work with you at the newspaper. And Bull said, I'll just take the little chunk of money. And he invested it.
Bull wants to make wants to start himself. He wants to, earn his own place in the universe. Doesn't want to live off the coattails of his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
And Kennedy's just like, fuck it. Just
fuck
following dad.
Whatever
gets me.
He knows the journalist. Maybe Kennedy, like as a kid, he hung out at the Chronicle a lot, and Bull is a bit older, and so he didn't really, he didn't want to hang out with his dad and his dad's coworkers. But Kennedy he loved it. He loved being at the, in the vibe and the sort of the ambiance of a bunch of writers and journalists just working together and being drunkards and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so we get the impression that their dad is much more proud of Bull. Well, their dad's dead now, but he was much more proud of Bull, but also he was a lot more like Kennedy, right? Like he saw much more of himself in Kennedy.
He's proud of Bull because Bull went out and did something for himself. Maybe Bull has his own business.
Yeah, his own.
Right?
Maybe he's a lawyer. Let's say he's a lawyer. He's
a lawyer, has his own firm. That's why he's proud of Bull because he's like him because he started his own business. Mm-hmm. He's kind of disappointed in the other son because he just sort of followed his dad.
Yeah, but so he gets there. He gets to the Chronicle, and they're like, the editor starts chewing him out, and his editor is like a classic, J. Jonah Jameson style. Like he's a old guy with a cigar. He's chomping down.
He's always asking for pictures of Spider-Man.
He's always asking for pictures of Spider-Man. And so he's just yelling at him, and he's like, here's my article. He takes a crumpled piece of paper out of his jacket pocket, and he hands it to him, and he's like, this is shit. I mean, it's fine, but it literally smells of shit. Did you sleep in a dumpster last night? What I do in my free time is none of your business.
None of your business. Okay.
You know, and so that's happening. He's in the Chronicle, and he's just wandering around. He's getting his, you know, saying hi. Maybe he's got like a friend at the Chronicle who he can have a conversation with about the sort of thing. And he doesn't tell him that they found Harry Stanton's body, but he like begins asking questions about this like avant-garde artist, right? And then maybe the arts editor, right? You could say.
Yeah, he's like goes up to him. He's like, "Hey, what's a good art editor's name? Art goes up to Art.
Yeah, Art.
And he's like, "Hey, what's up, Art?" And he's like, "Oh, you never talked to me, Kennedy, because you know he's the loser art guy who gives a fuck about him."
Yeah, who cares?
He's like, you know, I want to know if you know anything about this
standing guy.
What's standing guy? Yeah.
And
like, what? Yeah.
What's his thing? And we have a conversation about him, and we learn a little bit more about his art and that sort of thing. And then the episode ends with a group of police officers coming into the Chronicle asking for Mr. Jackson, asking to see Mr. Kennedy Jackson. He sees the cops, and it's like very much that one scene from The Matrix at the beginning of it when Morpheus is like leading Neo out of the building, right? And so he's just like ducking in between like cubicles and stuff and like avoiding the cops at all costs because he thinks either these cops are here to arrest him for the murder of Harry Stanton or these cops are here to break his legs because he owes them money, right? So he's two reasons not to be involved with the police at all. And so he, you know, ducks out, and the episode ends with him getting out of the Chronicle, getting into his car, which he has parked, you know, pretty much constantly parked in front of the
cops
Chronicle.
that are there. Is it hard-nosed dick face? Richard.
It's not hard-nosed. It's not Hardy Richard. It is. Okay. They are definitely police officers, but they're not dressed like beat cops. Hardy Richard dresses like a beat cop. These guys are in suits and ties, you know?
Detectives, yeah.
Detectives, right? Or that's what Kennedy assumes, and so he's just like, fuck, I gotta get out of here. And so, you know,
split, man.
He ducks and he gets into his old, shitty, beat up, you know, car, and he just drives away, fast as you like, you know? He just peels on out of there. End of episode 1, right? We've got a murder. We've got some reasons not to be involved with the police. We've got some characters, you know? We're getting there. We've almost got a story.
Almost.
Almost.
Not yet, though.
And so episode 2 starts with Kennedy's like, I gotta lay low. I can't go to these cops, you know. You know, maybe just now the murder of Harry Stanton's starting to become, you know, get into the news cycle. You hear it on the radio. You'll see it in the papers, that sort of thing. And so he's decided, you know, while I'm lying low with, from the cops, I should at least check out this concrete firm, right? So he drives down to the concrete firm, right? In the, you know, it's in the warehouse part of town. Every fictional city has just a big section of the town that's just full of warehouses.
Isn't LA a real city?
Yeah, but it's in a fiction. Does LA have a warehouse section of town?
There's parts of the city that have a lot of warehouses.
He goes to one of those, and there's a bunch of warehouses all around. And so he goes into this concrete firm, and he finds it's completely empty. Like, there's not even lights. You know, it's just got a sign in the front that says, like, Workman's Concrete, right? Or whatever the title is.
Yeah.
And so he gets...
John Boy and Sons Concrete.
It's completely empty except for 3 enormous slabs of concrete. Or not of concrete, of granite. 3 slabs of granite.
They're monoliths from 2001.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard switch right now. We're going to space.
Yes. Oh, man, I did think about that. It was definitely...
Of course you
did. But he gets there, there's 3 big slabs of granite, and he, like, looks at them, and he scratches, and it's just fucking granite. Like, what is this? Fuck. You know?
Somebody's kitchen counter.
Yeah. He's like baffled but also quite annoyed because his only lead has turned out to be a dead end. And so he's like, well, shit, I don't Like, what am I going to do with this granite? There's no one here I can talk to. But he remembers that he has a friend who is, works in the...
He's a granite guy.
Yeah, he's a granite guy. He works in the shipping section of the city. And so he goes, he talks to his friend, twists his arm a little, and he eventually gets the shipping manifest. So he finds that there's only ever been one delivery to Workman and Sons concrete firm, and it was for
Workman and Sons.
Yeah,
yep.
And it was for 3 slabs of granite that came from New Mexico, right?
Oh.
And it's this very specific address in New Mexico. And he sees this, and he's like, well, shit, I gotta drive to New Mexico to...
Gotta go to New Mexico, Yep. It's a bit of a drive.
And he's like, well, yeah, exactly. Thinks, well, before I, decide to drive to New Mexico, I'll go get a drink. And he goes and he gets a drink,
Yep.
and he watches the TV news, and they're, talking about the murder of Harry Stanton. And there's, they show his house, the house of this murdered guy. And Kennedy's like, well, I'll just sit here. It's like midday, and he's drinking, and he's like, well, I'll just drink until it's nighttime, and then I'll drive over to this artist's house to see if I can find any more clues. And so he, obviously he's drinking all day. He's a bit soused, and he gets in his car and he drives, because it was the 60s. You could drink and drive all you wanted. He gets in his car and he drives over to this artist's house, and it's like, police tape and all this stuff. But this guy, if there's one thing he's good at, it's avoiding police. So he's like able to like kind of duck and weave and dodge around the cops and break into this artist's house. And he finds that it's just it's been quarantined off, and everything's like, it doesn't even look like the cops have touched this house. Nobody has been inside. And he's like, this is weird that nobody's touched this place. And he goes in, and he finds that there's a woman here, absolutely high out of her mind, right? She's just lying on a couch, like, not close to overdosing, but she's like, she's out of it. And so he decides, well, shit, I can't just leave this woman here. What if she knows something? He has no concern for this woman's health or safety whatsoever, but he's like, what? She might know something that will exonerate me. Maybe she killed him, and dumped his body, came back here, shot up, I don't know. Let me get her out of here, and then I'm gonna interrogate her, And so he, sneaks her, he manages to, like, carry her out, sneak her out, and I imagine it's very much you remember that one scene in Batman Begins where Alfred is, like, putting Rachel in the car, and the people see him, and he's like, oh yeah, she had one too many. I'm definitely not helping Batman, That one scene? It's like that.
Yep.
And so he gets her in his car, he drives out into the middle of nowhere, and,
But wait, he's at their house. Like, it's not like there's anyone around that can say anything.
Maybe it's a neighbor.
Like the neighbors?
Yeah, it's a neighbor situation, sees him.
Hey, is she all right? She's just having a lot of...
Yeah, it's the Hollywood parties. You know how it is. Lots of...
Isn't the owner dead? You know how these celebrities are.
These celebrities so weird.
Always throwing those just died parties.
Yeah. What, you've never been to one? What, are you lame? You suck.
You loser.
And he drives away. And he drives away in the middle of nowhere, and he tries to conduct this, like, police-style interrogation with the bright lights and everything, and, like, hiding his face and all that stuff. But they are in a very small car, so it's not really very useful, and she's also high. And so she wakes up, and she finds that she's, like, not strapped down, but she's, like, been seat buckled down to, like, keep her from, like, running away, and she just starts flipping out and, like, vomiting all over herself, and she's just not having a good time. And he's like, oh, this sucks. Yeah, oh, this is disgusting. I'm sorry, Jesus, I'm sorry. And so they both get out of the car. She finishes throwing up. He hands her, one of his road beers that he's got in his car, because of course he does. And, they both, have a beer, right? And she, after hyperventilating a bit, says, my name's Maya, and I'm here looking for my brother. I think Harry Stanton murdered him. Dun dun dun. End of episode 2.
Wait, what? Why was she high? Okay, we'll see. So
we'll see, exactly. So,
or we'll hear, because this is a podcast.
If you could see it, you would. I'll perform the whole thing if we record it. If we if you got a camera, I'll do the whole thing. I'll do voices. I'll be murdered for the sake of this art.
I would love to watch that.
So the girl, Maya, she wakes up, or she didn't wake up, she tells him that she came to LA looking for her brother, right? And her brother, who she had, they were very close and they had been exchanging letters for a really long time, and her brother had told her that he was going to go live and work with this new artist, Harry Standen. He's a genius, he's amazing, and he thinks I've got what it takes to, be on his level. So I'm gonna go, be there and work with him. And then after a few weeks of being here and working with him, she stops getting letters. There's no communication whatsoever. And so she tries to get in contact with Harry over like phone and like, write him and like talk to his secretary and stuff like that. It all pretty much leads nowhere. So she decides, well, I'm going to take things into my own hands, So she drives down to LA. She confronts Harry, right? She talks to him. And he says, oh, yeah, I love your brother. He's an absolute sweetheart. He's amazing. Here, if you come back to mine, right? Come back to my place. I'll call him up. He'll come right over, right? And so she's kind of naive. She's young, right? She's like a 19-year-old girl, whereas Kennedy is like I would say in his late 30s, early 40s. And so she's like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'll come over to your house, and then I can see my brother, right? And she's like, yeah, sure. And so she, goes to his house. She has a drink, right? She maybe has 2 drinks, right? Maybe one of those drinks had something in it that she didn't know about, right? So she, gets knocked out, and then she wakes up in sort of a haze, and he's like plying her with pills and smokable things, and eventually, like, he injects some horse into her to keep her to keep her cogent, or not cogent, to keep her like quiet and to stop her from doing anything. And he's like, I'll be right back. All right, you just enjoy that. And so she's like totally out of it. She's been drugged. She's been filled up with all sorts of horrible chemicals. And then he leaves to go meet someone, and she can overhear, in her drug-addled state, she thinks he's talking to somebody about dealing with this girl that just came to meet him, And so she's like, and she passes out, right? Totally stoned out of her mind. And that was the night that Harry Standen disappeared, died, was murdered. And so she's like, I think that he killed my brother for some like sick, twisted LA sex thing. And then, when he no longer was useful to the horrible LA people, they killed him, right? So I want to find out the people who helped him murder my brother. So she's very confident that her brother is dead and that Harry Standen did it. And then Kennedy explains that he's trying to, clear his name, that sort of thing. And so they decide to join forces, reluctantly join forces to get down to the truth. And she says, oh yeah, he was telling me, he had all these posters in his house. These are posters we didn't see because it was very dark when Jackson went there. He had all these posters in his house from this one particular studio. This film studio, it makes adult films, right? So for whatever reason, this artist Harry Standen has a bunch, like probably half a dozen posters from this one porno studio that makes like weird porns, right? And so they decide, we're gonna go down there and see, like, did he have a relationship with these people at all? And so they go down there, right? They lie to get in, right? We're representatives of Mr. Stanton's estate, and we want to blah, 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 right? Whatever. And so they are introduced to Harry's favorite gal. That's how they say it. That's what everyone says. And Harry's favorite gal is actually 2 gals, right? They're conjoined twins, right? Basically. And one of them is in complete hysterics. She is sobbing. She is so sad because she was the one that Harry was in love with, and she was in love with him, right? And then the other one, let's name them. I didn't give them names, but let's say it's Lucy and Alice. How's that? So Lucy is in complete hysterics. She's sobbing. She's so sad because the great love of her life, is dead. And Alice is relieved. She doesn't obviously she's not oh, thank God that fucking guy. She's holding it in because she's, obviously she cares about her sister's feelings. But you can kind of tell from the way she talks about it, she didn't like Harry. She thought that he was a bit of a creep and he was just kind of using Alice for his own devious sexual thrills, and it rubbed her the wrong way, but Alice was in love with him, so that sort of thing. And they eventually are able to get the information out of them that he was working on this new government contract, right? This is a government contract for an artist, which is very odd. But he was very excited, but also very nervous about it. And he would, he'd find out soon, but it all leads back to, it's all connected to this lovely little concrete firm down in South LA, right? And just as, they're gonna try and get a little bit more information in, bing, bang, boom, the cops bust in, they start fucking shit up, and they arrest Maya and Mr. Jackson. End of episode 3. Bam. That's the end of the episode. Those are the 3 episodes I have figured out, but
what?
I will tell you what happens. Okay. It's just not going to be as scripted. So they get arrested. Episode 4, they're arrested. They're brought into the police department, and they think, oh, this is about us lying about being Harry Stanton. This is about us being, maybe the people who murdered him, right? All this stuff. Turns out it's the suited cops from the ending of the first episode, right? They've been looking for Mr. Jackson because they believe he will serve as a very good witness against Dick Hardley. What was his name? Richard Hardy? Hardy Richard.
Yeah,
Richard. Because Hardy Richard is being investigated by Internal Affairs for corruption. And they think that Mr. Jackson will serve as a very good witness for this case. And so we were led to believe that these were detectives looking for the murder of Harry Stanton, when in actuality, they are Internal Affairs investigators who are looking into corruption within the LA Police Department.
Goddamn,
Yeah, exactly. So that's Harry's kind of whew. So you don't think I murdered Harry Stanton? They're like, what? Why would we think you murdered Harry Stanton? Oh, because I woke up next to his dead body. What? Never mind. What'd you want to talk about Richard Hardy, Dickface? What'd you want to say? He's completely out. He doesn't know. But they eventually get the information they want from him, and in exchange for that information, he is granted full and precise, beautiful car detailing for his shitty beat-up car that is full of vomit. That was his deal.
It was this demand. Yeah, one of the cops, his brother works at a detailing place, and they're like, all right,
fine, we'll clean it up. Yeah, that was pretty much his only deal.
Or no, they have the victim they bring her to the crime scene place where they clean up crime scene cars before auction or something.
Yeah.
Like that. And they have there's the car in front of it has a dead body and there's blood all over the windshield. And then they pull up his and they're like, holy crap, this is one of the worst I've ever seen. What happened in here? It's I live in it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Fucking creep. All right, let's.
The guy's going through it before he said things oh my god, 4 people must have died in here.
This is horrible. Hey, that's the bathroom. That's the master suite you're talking about, sir. And so that's kind of the ending of the cop story for right now. Obviously, the investigation of Harry Stanton is still happening, but it seems like the police department is being very sluggish about it. They don't seem all that interested in the murder of this high-profile artist, which is odd. Harry, Kennedy remarks to himself and to Maya, this is very strange.
Yeah, he's a hippie.
Exactly. Well, that's Maya's explanation. It's like, oh, the cops don't care about, young people dying. They don't care about, like, people on the fringe, the artists, the musicians.
Yeah, but he's a rich guy. You don't get it, Maya. The rich people, they always got that cops
Yeah, exactly.
on their side.
It's a whole conversation. You see, you're writing the dialogue for the show right now. It's good. And so that's where we're at right now. I think we can have a few more misadventures within LA before they drive out to New Mexico and really get into the gritty details of what's been going on here. If you have any suggestions about fun misadventures
Well, it shouldn't just be like random shit. It should make sense, right? So, because we got to follow this mystery. So we got a couple threads here. We got the cop thing on the side. We got whatever happened with Maya and the sex party. So maybe they should go to one and
that
start
is a
asking
good idea. They
questions,
bust into like a creepy sex party and they've all got masks on.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe not bust in, but they're like, they're crashing.
Yeah. Well, that would be fun. That would be a fun episode idea. Is to have like, Kennedy's.
They got to go through, and Kennedy's trying to interview people while, like, they're doing some weird shit.
Yeah.
And he's got like a little notepad, and he's just like totally not caring about like the weird crap they're doing, but Maya's like appalled by everything she's saying, and he's just like, see this every Wednesday.
It's LA, baby.
Just another Tuesday.
Yeah, come on. And they have to, obviously it's a weird LA orgy. They have to either be wearing leather outfits or completely naked. So maybe
60s LA orgy has to be weird.
Maybe Jackson, like Kennedy's like, I'll get naked, that's fine. And he like gets completely naked except for like a weird animal mask, like Eyes Wide Shut style. And then Maya just like, she finds the most clothing you can wear, like the most, like a really restrictive like leather suit, but it covers everything, so nobody sees her naked. And so she's like, oh, this will be the most. No one will pay attention to me because I'm not naked. But then like people are all like really interested in her, and she's like just the entire time Kennedy's just trying to interview people and talk to people and get like some clues, where Maya is like just. Maybe she can, break away from the party because people are perving on her and she's not very comfortable with that. And she, goes upstairs and she starts looking through, the thing. And maybe she can find a clue to her brother and what happened to him. But it is going to be revealed what has happened to her brother and where he is. And if he's still alive. Ooh. Oh. Ooh. Also, I think that we should have, like, the room, like the house, whoever owns the house should be a real life director who existed, and we never say explicitly who it is, but we make it like pretty obvious, if you know anything about old Hollywood, it's like we make it Errol Flynn's house,
I know that is
Errol Flynn, sure. Robin Hood, that guy, or we could have a Humphrey Bogart. It could be Humphrey Bogart's house. That would be pretty funny. But yeah, and they find a clue and they're like, ooh, there's a clue, more people to interview and talk to. And so they they're running around LA and they decide, it's time. We've got all the external information that we can get out of this city. Let's go to motherfucking New Mexico. This address, right? And we have an episode, they're just driving, maybe we do a bit of bonding, a little bit of fun times, because it's a road trip situation, but it is a very long drive. And they get there to this address, and it is in the middle of nowhere. Like, 100%, there is nothing around, it is a complete desert, right? And they just find this, like a mailbox situation, and it's just got the address written on it, but there's nothing else there, right? And so
nothing. Yeah.
And they're like what the fuck? This is weird, And they see out in the background, in the distance, there's somebody walking towards them, right? And then like as the desert, because the desert, has a set number, like set amount you can see, far away. So the mirage like lifts, and they can see that there's like maybe a dozen people just kind of wandering around this area, just sort of aimlessly bumping into each other and wandering and just kind of like almost as if they're drunk or high, but they're not, right? Like they're definitely sober. You could see it, but like they try and get their attention, they try and talk to them, and they're just like zombies, you know, completely out of it. And so they decide, well, let's hang around until nightfall. Maybe we can, like, somebody will show up or something. I don't know. And I don't want to be driving anymore. And so they decide, you know, let's wait till nightfall. They sit in their car, they hang out. Nightfall comes, and as nightfall comes, they see this huge truck drives out of nowhere. And it's got these big bright headlights, and they pull up, and these men, big scary men in all black, like military uniforms, get like cattle prods almost, and they like begin to prod these zombie people into the truck. You know, it's like, you know, they fit like a dozen people in there and just drive away. They just drive back into the desert. And so Jackson's like, we gotta know what's going on here. And so they drive, they follow them, you know, and we could have a fun sort of Indiana Jones moment where they like, let's get into the truck. We have to get into the truck. And so it's like, we drive up next to the car, you know, Maya jumps on, and then, I don't know, we'll figure it out. We can plan it. Maybe they get into the truck as they're like driving away. You know, the doors are closing in on the people who have been just like put into the car, and they like hop in. Right, and they stay in the truck with these zombie people, and they drive them into this crazy, weird government facility. Bum bum bum. There's a secret government facility, and they get like brought down to this sort of a farm of people. There's like there's not 100 people. There's probably 50 people all down here, and they're just like the same sort of blank stare. Completely unable to, you know, think or say anything, just kind of wandering and bumping into each other. And then so Harry's like, or not Harry, sorry, I keep saying that. Jackson's like, all right, well, let's see what they're doing, you know? And we can see that these people are being taken into rooms. You know, just like one by one taken into rooms, and then they're never brought out again. And they're like, what the fuck is going on here? And we see this big, you know, television, you know, face comes up, and it instructs these zombie people to do something, you know, like touch your toes, blankety blank. And the face that is saying it is wearing a mask that is very reminiscent of Harry Standed's most famous piece of art.
Oh.
Yeah, and so they're, you know, doing that, and the face comes up and tells them what to do, and all of the zombies immediately do the exact same thing. But because Maya and Kennedy aren't affected by this, whatever this is, they don't do it, and they're immediately caught out by, you know, the people running the facility, and they get taken in, they brought down, like knocked out, that sort of thing, dragged into a separate room, right? And they're chained up, locked up, that sort of a thing. And this is basically the big explanation dump of what's going on, right? So, turns out that Mr. Harry Standen's contract was that he's a very odd artist and a very intelligent artist, and he found that his art had a very particular effect on a very small number of people. He was able to use his art to implant hypnotic suggestions into a very, very small number of people, right? And so his art is basically able to hypnotize people, to tell people what to do. And, you know, we can go into all sort of pseudoscientific bullshit about this. You know, I had an idea that maybe he was a scientist, a researcher working in this field, and then he made this discovery and decided, you know, to go to the government with this, and the government was like, hey, let's make you into a world-famous artist so we can have the most people possible subjected to your art. That way we have the most, you know, the widest group of people hypnotized to come to this one area in New Mexico. They just wander here. And so these people have been brought here, and they've been shown to be very susceptible to this specific type of hypnotic suggestion. And so this secret government facility is testing these people and working on these people and experimenting on these people to try and control their minds, using this hypnotic suggestion along with other more chemically based methods. And we get the character who's telling them all this. He's got a slight German accent. All right, this is the.
You think I'm a Nazi?
I mean, yeah, he's a Nazi. They're Nazis.
Sure.
So there's a secret cabal of Nazis working within the U.S. government who are creating this basic race of sleeper agents that exist throughout the entirety of the U.S. that have been programmed in their brains by hypnotic suggestion and chemicals to, react in certain ways and do certain things, right? And so,
yeah,
this secret cabal of Nazis is using these brainwashed puppet people and infiltrating every level of government, local, national, state, all of it, to get their ideas and their points and their policies crossed, right? And one of the people who has been brainwashed and is being currently groomed into being a politician is Maya's brother. He's not dead. He's still alive. Oh my god. And so they see that Maya is able to, using the power of love and friendship and family, and also slapping him in the face a few times, is able to get through to him and help him to not escape the brainwashing, because he's gone, right? These people will never be the same again. But they are, they're still human beings, and so he's able to to break away from the programming for a bit, just enough to where he can flip the switch and open the cages, right? Basically just hit this high-pitched noise starts going, and it sends these people into a horrible murderous rage, which is just another, side effect of the brainwashing. And so they're able to escape. They get to the car, they get through this government facility. Kennedy Jackson, he's fucking elbowing people. He didn't give a shit. He shot a guy. He's lighting a cigarette underground. He doesn't care. He's kind of he's kind of lost it a little bit, because he's realized the U.S. government is run, at least in part, by Nazis, which is bad. Maybe we can have a backstory thing that his dad, fought in World War II. Could be a whole thing. We can tie it in more to the characters, but yeah, and they escape. They get to the car. They just drive silently, just in this sort of kind of a fear, a terror that inspires calm almost overcomes both of them, and they're driving, and they just drive for hours without saying a single word, and they finally stop at a diner and they have dinner. They just get a meal, and they're just sitting there drinking coffee, 2 a.m. And they know, what are we going to do with this information? Right? Because what are you going to do with that information? Excuse me. Because there's no way that they will believe you. There's no way the general public will believe you. There's no way that the Nazis that run the government won't kill you if you tell everyone. So they just kind of have to keep quiet about it, but they decide that they can't just allow this to go forward, So they concoct this story about Harry Standen. They concoct this really salacious, murder, suicide, drug, sex, story, using, some of the information that they've gotten throughout the, show, and to create this really crazy story that means that his art is going to forever be, it's going to be seen. People, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, but he's such it's such a reviled figure after this article comes out that people won't look at his art. People won't put it in galleries, right? People won't sell it, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And so this article, it's amazing. It's not Pulitzer Prize winning or anything, but it manages to put the Chronicle back on the map. And Jackson, he's happy with his work. He drives Maya to the airport. You know, she's flying back home to Minnesota to tell her family what happened. You know, and they hug. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the first time we ever see any real genuine like emotion coming from Jackson that isn't like fear, disgust, or anger, right? He's like, you know, because this is a person he has shared an unexplainable experience with, and they will both forever know, but they can't tell anyone. So that she gets on the plane, she flies home, and Jackson drives back to the Chronicle, parks his car, and goes down to the bar for a beer. That's the end of the show. Yeah.
Damn. I had an idea while you were shooting. I really liked the show. It was fun. It was a cool mystery. I didn't see Nazis coming.
No one expects the Nazis.
But when you mentioned the hypnotism, immediately I was like, well, what if Jackson was hypnotized the whole time?
I did think about doing that.
And that's why. I don't. If you were gonna do it, I was thinking that maybe you could do something like Harry Stanton is actually a stand-up guy who was just sort of tricked or forced into this by, you know, the Nazis or whatever. Maybe they have his siblings or something. But, you know, his way out, maybe like in the beginning, he creates like some like more advanced form of hypnotism, right? That doesn't just completely leave the subject mindless, but more as like suggestions. It's more subconscious hypnotism. Maybe it's one of his early works, or maybe it's something that's later. I don't know if that should be something that's more advanced or less advanced. And he somehow gets it to work on Jackson, and that's the whole reason why Jackson is doing this the whole time, right? And because then we have sort of like an interesting position at the end where they have to make this guy who was really a hero in a way because he, you know, tried to expose what the Nazis were doing.
I like that too.
But they have to make him look like a shitty dude just to like hurt.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. I'm not sure Jackson should be hypnotized, at least not for a majority of it. Like maybe we could have like 1 or 2 episodes where there's something that happens, you know, he sees one of the pieces of art and he's just kind of like, he goes into a weird headspace and like hallucinates a bit, but I don't think he should be, because I am saying that like, I think it's like 0.001% of the population is susceptible to this specific type of hypnotism, because it's very...
Well, that's why I was saying it's not the same as everyone else. Like, it's really just subconscious. That's the whole reason he's interested in the case, is because he has like this subconscious hypnotism. It's not big like everyone else is, where they're puppets. You know, it's just like has these little suggestions in his head. It's like, man, I really should focus on this Harry Stanton case.
Maybe he could get a letter, you know. That's one of the inciting incidents into him looking into it, is that he like received a letter, you know, weeks ago that was just had this weird kind of kooky image on it, and he thought nothing to it. And then, you know, that, I like that he's had like, Harry has been trying to get in contact with him because Jackson is one of the few, like, he's so low profile and such, you know, a scumbag that no one cares about buying him off. And that means that he's valuable because he's not been bought off yet. And it's like,
maybe they meant it to send it to someone else.
Yeah. And so he's like,
Oh, they sent it to like the Chronicle or whatever, because he was like, he wants to expose this to the newspaper and needs someone to look at it. And it just sort of passed through everyone's desk and no one was affected by it.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, and also just a last little answer to the mystery. The granite, right, wasn't actually granite at all. It was 3 gigantic blocks of smelted down Nazi gold that has been covered with a very very thin membrane of granite in order to keep it protected and keep it, you know, hidden from the general public. But that's how Harry Stanton was getting paid, was by these 3 giant blocks of Nazi gold. Yeah.
Damn.
And so maybe it could end with Jackson like just driving. He's just driving home.
He's driving home. He's like, but what about the granite? And then he goes to the warehouse.
And he takes like a sledgehammer and he smashes it. And he looks and there's just a bunch of gold. And he's like, yeah. And he smiles. And then
Oh, yeah. Because, like, on the drive back, or maybe in the diner, you gotta have some point where he's talking to Maya where he can be like, I still don't understand how they got him paid, you know? Like, where was the money coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, like, a loose thread that you set up there, and then you finish it off in, like, the tag
Yeah.
or the very end. Where
And he looks
open.
down and he's just like a little smile dances across his face. Yeah.
Grin. Just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the show. We still don't have a name for it, but we can come up with it. Spooky mystery time. Nazis are everywhere. That's the name.
We gotta have like an art word. Like we gotta have like, you know, abstract expressionism. Like some art word like that we could throw in, and then another word that would fit and make it sort of gritty.
I think abstract is a good start.
Blood on the canvas.
Blood on the canvas. I don't think that. I think that's a good title. I don't think it works for this. Yeah, I think abstract suggestions. Because hypnotic suggestion, abstract suggestion. That's a wordy. That's a.
We gotta have something sort of guttural though.
Yeah.
Like a word that.
Abstract scum.
Carnal Impressionism.
Carnal Impressionism. That's a great fucking title. Fucking print it. Slap it down.
There we go.
Bang,
Carnal
bang, boom.
Impressionism. There we go.
We just got there. All right. Well, and the final song that we'll be playing over it will be "Bite It, You Scum" by Gigi Allen.
Oh.
Yeah, classic punk anger and grossness. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast.
Oh, I just realized something else. So we have to say who we're gonna play.
Oh,
we
yeah.
could be two random people in the Chronicle.
Yeah, we could be two random
Arguing in the background.
or we could be the two police officers.
We could be, yeah, we could be the police officer.
Yeah, I think we could be good internal affairs people. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
We're the two internal affairs boys, and we're like, what's going on with your internal affairs? Or we could be at the orgy. We could be both. We could be the internal affairs officers.
I don't want to be at the orgy.
And then we show.
You can be at the orgy
Okay,
if
I'll
you
be
want.
at the orgy.
I'm wearing all my clothes.
You could wear. Maybe you could be wearing your suit at the internal affairs.
I'll be at the Chronicle. I'll be someone in the background of the Chronicle.
Yeah. Okay. How about we both be at the Chronicle? I'll be at the orgy. You can be at the porno studio.
Okay. How about we're both at the Chronicle and you also are at the orgy? Okay, that's it. That's the only connection. And at one point, we'll have a little, the smallest gag where Kennedy Jackson's like there looking around. He's like, that guy looks kind of familiar. Nothing. There's nothing to it. You're like wearing a mask or something, so no one can tell. But it's like, it's a little joke. Maybe he just looks over you in recognition, like, I think that guy works at my office.
Yeah.
Like in his head. Like, he's not saying that out loud, but just keeps going.
I recognize that guy. I use the urinal next to him all the time.
It looks the same.
Same crooked. I can see it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, navigator, gunner, and orator, Jacob Cloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat, and remember, we'll be here next week, so will you, and we'll all be happy as little clams.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.